time it is. Marvin Devine, Huber, Axel, and you know how we do.
Yeah, I got the juice. Whip game cool, make them look like cool. Always play it cool, that's the biggest rule. Forget what they doing, keep on doing it. I've been making loot since like 22. Ask me how I made it right here in the booth. I'm always pursued cause of what I pursue. That's greatness, yeah, I gotta make it, I got things to lose. Boy, wanna get in my crew, but you can't get in my crew. Me, Axel, and Huber way too fireable. When this joint drop, better call the troops. And when you hear the drop, better raise the roof. Better raise the roof.
You already know what happens when we link up. Let's go.
These brothers my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Cold, these brothers my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Ride or die, 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 ride or die. Cold, these brothers my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta ride or die.
What's going on? Welcome to World Health News. I am your host, Steve Belcher. What's going on? Man, it's been a while since I've been on live like this, and it's good to be back. We're back under a new concept. We're no longer World Kidney News, but World Health News. We're talking about all types of health in urban areas across the country. So from this point forward, this is World Health News with Steve Belcher. Just so happened tonight, just off the heels of Kidney Awareness Month, we have a kidney warrior right here tonight. He's a two-time kidney transplant recipient, kidney advocate, motivational speaker, workshop facilitator, podcast host. Also, he's a native of Chicago, and he's an executive. Man, this guy, you wouldn't even think he would take the time out and devote his whole life now to advocating against kidney disease and the whole transplant process. So without further ado, I'm glad to have this gentleman on. It's been about 2 months since we supposed to have had this show. He had some health setbacks, and he bounced back like amazingly. So here tonight, without further ado, let me introduce DK Millsap and let me give him the VIP treatment. Hey, DK, what's going on?
Hey Steve, how you doing? Good to see
Pretty
you.
good, pretty good, man. It's been a while, man. Thanks for coming on World Health News tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk on your show and give your followers and listeners some information they may not have. And I can.
Right. So when you see people on the street and you tell them you had a kidney transplant, you're a 2-time transplant recipient, how they respond to you?
Well, they have usually a lot of questions to ask me. Uh, how do you get a kidney transplant? They ask me what was your situation. The average person has 1,000 questions to ask, and I'm glad to give them all the information I can. The
Right.
first question is how do you go about getting a kidney? And if they're not on dialysis, what is dialysis? And the process of it. So it's so much more speed to that because when you need a kidney and you go on kidney dialysis, it affects your whole life. Affects you financially, emotionally. It affects your family and friends. A lot of the things you need to know, and perhaps the doctors don't have the time to answer all the personal questions or little questions you may have that you think aren't important but are. So
And let me ask you something, DK. How does your story begin? When were you diagnosed, and how did you come to where you're at today and advocating for time?
okay, well, I'll start with me first. Uh, 20 some years ago, I was interviewing for a job. And this particular job, I had to go to about 4 interviews, plus go see their doctor, test for drugs and all kind of things. So I'm at their doctor. The doctor comes out to me and she said, "You have such high blood pressure to be such a young man." I said, "Well, maybe I'm a little nervous about this job opportunity. I really want to get this job." She says, "Oh yeah, and you have a lot of protein in your urine." Now, I've never been sick before I saw that company's doctor. I thought protein was always good for you, just to tell you how unknowledgeable I was at that time. I said, "Well, I just had a son, so I thought protein was good." But actually, protein in your urine is an indicator that you've got some potential kidney problems. So, ended up getting a job and moving forward and promoted and different things in life. About 10 years after that, I was out of town on business, and I hadn't been feeling well anyway. And I remember I was out with some clients golfing, and man, I couldn't breathe. I would go back to the hotel room to turn the air conditioner up full blast. I was gaining weight and couldn't understand how I wasn't losing weight. I mean, I was golfing, going to the gym occasionally, playing a lot of tennis, and I had a lot of personal things going on in my life at that time also. So when I finally got through from that business trip, I remember calling a friend of mine who was a pharmaceutical sales at the time, and I asked him about a good doctor I could go to. So this doctor was, probably one of the best doctors in the Chicagoland area. He's an African American doctor, and it took about a month just to get an appointment with him. So nevertheless, I finally get an appointment with him, and I was a little edgy, a little grumpy. You know, when people are sick, man, they don't know sometimes. Short tempered. So I went in there and I saw his physician's assistant, and I kind of snapped because I said, "Man, I waited a month to see the doctor. I'm not professing what a doctor, what a physician assistant is like I am today." But he checked me out and he said, "Hey man, I want you to do me a favor. You got anything you're doing after this appointment?" I said, "No. I just want to take a couple of tests. I need you to go to the hospital immediately." He said, "No, don't worry about it. You can go there. I can't take the test here." So I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "I don't want you to go home. I don't want you to go anywhere. I want you to go to the doctor." Man, I go to the emergency room. They put me on EKGs and take all these tests. And it's determined, they admitted me, it's determined that I got some kidney problems, you know. So I did go back to that PA and personally apologize for my temper. But once again, I was 60, so I didn't really know what was going on.
Absolutely.
I had never been, growing up, man, I was an athlete. I didn't never get sick, never had a cold really, never broke a bone, never did anything. But
Right.
I remember, uh,
What happened to you, DK?
hold on a second, let me get back to you. Hold on.
Okay, while we wait for DK to come back on, he was going to share with you that as a youth, he experienced high blood pressure. Let him tell you he's back.
Okay.
Okay, there we go, DK.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's
Technical
okay.
difficulty.
I was,
So,
well, go ahead. I was
okay,
just going to tell the crowd, the audience, that you had mentioned on one of your shows where you was being interviewed that as a young kid, you had protein in the urine or high blood pressure.
yeah, I had high blood pressure, I had protein, as a young man, protein in my urine. Usually you think people, eat protein to build muscle, and I didn't know the difference. So that was that. So when I went, a moment in life I'll never forget, a nephrologist, which I didn't even know what a nephrologist is. For the viewing audience, a nephrologist is a kidney doctor. So when you're in the hospital, a kidney doctor comes in and he says to me, "I got some news for you." So I'm laying in the hospital bed, and I've got my mother, my father, my uncle, and my aunt are standing in the room also. So he says, "Is it okay to go over the situation?" I said, "Yeah, go right ahead." He said, "Well, you got renal failure, and you're probably going to need to go on dialysis soon." I had no idea, man, what dialysis was or what it entailed or how it would affect my life to this day. And the look on the faces of my parents and my uncle and aunt was an unbelievable state of shock. So, nevertheless, that doctor in the hospital became my nephrologist, and I would see him periodically before I started my process of being on dialysis. So he explained to me I would have to go through a procedure to get an access point to go through dialysis, which is either having a surgery on your arm and they put a fistula or a graft
Right.
in your arm, so that when the time comes that you need to start the process.
What did you have
I had a fistula put
in your lower or upper arm?
both, man. I had two surgeries to get that correct. The vascular surgeons always like to start on your hand, a little cut on your hand.
In the lower part,
Yep. And then when that don't work, they want to go
and
to
that
the
didn't
wrist.
develop.
Didn't develop, the wrist didn't develop, and finally he said, "Man, the vascular surgeon said, I'm tired of seeing you, and I'm going to make a super fistula for you." And he put it in my upper left arm.
Mm-hmm.
So,
A lot of people go through that. I talk about that, DK, because the surgeon knows that African Americans or people of color naturally have small veins. And so they know this, but they do the vein mapping before to see what veins are good. We had a surgeon on our show from Chicago, Dr. Singh. And from Chicago, he's out in out in Santa Barbara now. And he broke it down to us. and he sent me a chart on which veins, when people go in to see the surgeon, and which veins to use, because which ones are larger. And see, that's a different conversation. But I know thousands of patients that same thing that happened to you happened to 1,000 patients.
Well, I hear where you're coming from. If you know that, man, why you keep having surgery on people's arms? You know, you should just go and put it where you know
Exactly.
strong, rather than dragging a person into surgery 2 or 3 times to create a fistula or a graft, whatever you decide is going to happen. So if you don't, you're going to have to get that procedure done. If you don't get that procedure done and you have to go on kidney dialysis, all of a sudden they put a chest catheter in your chest, and that
Okay.
is used as a port to go do dialysis. So you're viewing honest audience, we know what we're talking about because we've been in that field and been through that process. Maybe some viewers are experiencing this for the first time or have a loved one is. Uh, Dialysis is a process of cleaning your blood, what your kidneys do. So it takes the impurities out of your blood and the water out of your blood, and it puts it through a filter, and it cleans it and sends it back to your body. In order to have that procedure done, you have to have an access point. It's not like just going to a doctor sticking 2 needles in your arm. You have to have an access point where the blood goes in and the blood comes out. So the chest catheter is meant for a temporary basis. You do not want to get no catheters infected, or you're in grave danger if that should happen. So I was fortunate. Uh, Before I had to start, I already had a catheter put in. So not a catheter, a fistula. So then it's just a matter of finding what dialysis unit is closer to you and which one to go, which one you're going to go to and do everything. And let me tell you my luck. The very first time uh, I was in a doctor's office, and I'll never forget. Earlier that day, I just drew up out of nowhere. I was like, damn, that's kind of odd. I hadn't eaten anything. And that's the same day I had to go see my kidney doctor. So he asked me, he said, how you feeling? I said, man, I feel all right. He says, okay. He said, I think we're going to need to start you pretty soon on this thing. Well, my question is, how did you know that? He said, you can smell the toxins in your body, man. They
Mm.
check the creatinine level.
The uremia.
Yeah, you can smell
Wow.
it when you're in there. So um, I picked the dialysis unit, and I go there. Now, I've hated needles my whole life. Not a needle type guy. And I was very picky who was going to stick me. So the lead nurse said, I'm good at, she said, I'm excellent at this because you had several dialysis techs in there sticking and nurses, as you well know. And I kind of looked at it and said, oh, okay. I
So
said,
wait a minute. Can I stop you for a second?
sure.
You said you picked the person you wanted to stick you.
No, I told the dialysis director, I don't want anyone new sticking me. This is my first experience. I want
Right.
an
Do people, they
experience.
have that option as a patient? You had that option?
Well, I'm a different type of soul, Steve. I have that option, but I can't speak for everybody else. It might depends on where you go. But I'm very adamant about little things like that, man. I want everything to go smooth. So I asked her in a real nice kind of way when I go in there, could you please give me a very experienced person rather than just sitting me in a seat and I happen to be in the seat that the person has for that day. And she blew my vein.
Mm.
Yeah, she blew my vein. I had to go to the emergency room and get a chest catheter put in.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, this is going to be a hell of an experience. Um, so, nevertheless, I was on dialysis.
How many years?
I was on it initially 2 years. My sister uh, gave me an opportunity of life. She gave me one of her kidneys. So that was very courageous of her to step up to the plate and give me a kidney. And that lasted 5 years. And I caught a nephro where it kind of flooded out. They had hit my bladder in the surgery, so that kidney flooded out. So I had to go back on dialysis and wait for it to heal.
Mm.
Right. So I'm very versed in all the different things you go through when you're on dialysis, and how you feel, what's going through your mind, all the cramps and dry weights, and something kind of funny. I asked, they were talking when you go into dialysis, it's like starting kindergarten all over. You don't know anything what people tell you. So they were talking about dry weight, dry weight. So I asked, how do you know when you reach your dry weight? And the nurse just looked at me and smiled. She said, "Oh, you'll know." So
By cramping?
that's right. My fingers were like this, all cramped up, the toes. And I said, "Oh, that's how I found my dry weight." They go, "Yeah." So you always fluctuate with your dry weight with the doctors uh, that come and see you during dialysis because you're going to lose weight on that process. I used to jokingly say, if you ever really want to lose weight, get in the dialysis chair. You're guaranteed to lose some weight.
And let me ask you, do you think um, when you were at dialysis that many patients that you were involved in understood that concept of a dry weight?
Oh yeah, yeah. Most of them cramp. All you gotta do is cramp once or twice, man, and you'll get a great understanding of what a dry weight is. But Steve, what's so difficult about dialysis? You're used to drinking a whole lot, and you have to watch what you drink when you start dialysis. Um, because you have to go 3 times a week, and that's what people have to understand. You must go 3 times a week. Oh, I ain't feeling well today, or I'm tired or sleepy. That's not going to be a good answer when you're on dialysis. You have to go, and if you drink too much, you'll feel bloated. You'll feel sluggish and have a hard time breathing. So you have to watch your intake when you're on dialysis.
Mm-hmm.
You have to eat properly. You have to take the medication that the nephrologist tells you. You have to have you got to believe in God, I would say. Um,
Mm-hmm. Tell us
you
about your
have,
second transplant.
okay.
Where were you at the day you got that call?
I started having some problems, so I went into the doctor and to get checked out. The doctor said, "Well, you're gonna, your kidney flooded basically from your bladder, so you're gonna have to go back on dialysis." And that was just like a nightmare all over again.
Well, no, but when you got the call for your second transplant, was it a cadaver or was it a living
Together,
donor?
together.
Uh-huh. What was you doing when you got the call to come in?
I kind of knew they kind of called you and said you're coming up shortly. They kind of gave you a pre-warning, like be ready. So I was just in the house, probably watching television or something. I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember exactly, but I'm so grateful to God, man.
And how long has that been since you had that second transplant?
5 years.
Wow, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Now, so you didn't know anything about this new process that you were put into, two-time transplant, now your second transplant. How did you become DK Millsap, the motivational speaker, the podcast host, also known as the Kidney Gladiator? How did all that come about, that concept?
Well, I had to ask myself some questions, man. First of all, what led to this, and what does God have in store for me? I'm a pretty good speaker. My previous jobs, I was manager, divisional manager, and different things like that. But as a African American man, you are exposed daily to systemic racism, to hatred amongst our own peers, to our way of thinking, to what are we doing. Kidney disease is nothing that just all of a sudden came. It's your eating habits. It's do you have hypertension? Do you have high blood pressure? It's how do you control stress? And I just felt if I can talk about anything, and I can talk about a lot of stuff, I could surely talk about kidney disease to people and let them know that this is an epidemic, and we have to change our way of living, man, not just you know, simple stuff, but uh, real deep stuff as far as how we eat, what our attitude toward things, what are our visions, do we have a goal, what do we hold a value? Uh, you know, as a black man, you're looked upon to do a lot of stuff, but you have a lot of inequalities. So you're fighting that and fighting this. Some decisions you make are good, some decisions you make are bad, but it's how we think. You know, it's amazing to me. Uh, the years I was on dialysis, I hardly saw any Caucasian people in the dialysis chair. It's usually minorities. And I've been to California on dialysis, and I've been to Washington D.C. on dialysis. And you know, if a Caucasian person finds out someone needs a kidney, they're like, "Oh, Susie, Jim needs a kidney." Well, hold on, let me call Kyle, and Kyle say, "Oh, I'll give him a kidney." He doesn't even know him, but they understand the process, man, of life. Uh, African American people, oh, I ain't giving nobody no kidney. Oh, they're gonna take mine away, ain't gonna have one. They have such a negative, uh, stupid philosophy on that until they have to get in that chair and need a kidney.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, you can't be a abusive person on your body, a drug head, drug, you know, caught up on drugs and this and that, and get a kidney and just give it away. They're too precious. But we, as what we eat and what we drink, and it's affecting us, man. And I know it is happening in Chicago, man, for sure. But if you look around, you see a lot of kidney places popping up, like restaurants.
Right, and I want to talk to you about that in a second. I just want to address something. I saw a comment from a colleague, Jim Benson, who is a kidney pancreas recipient and also executive director of transplantjourney.org. And she asked me to explain how a dry weight is calculated when we were talking about the weights. And pretty much, I want to just explain it from the nurse perspective. The way we calculate a dry weight when a new patient comes into dialysis, we have what's called to be determined. That's what we do. And so we try to get a kind of idea of what your weight was before you got sick. And so we look at your weight, what you weighed in, and from that we make an assessment and of your legs for edema. We're listening to your lungs for fluid buildup. We just checking for edema, and then we pull off fluid. The doctor may say, like your first treatment, he'll give us treatment orders, and he may say pull off 3 liters or 2 liters. And that's what we would set the machine for. And then we pull off that 2 or 3 liters. If your pressure's good and you leave out, we keep doing that until what you just said, DK, about start cramping. That's when you when your body starts cramping, that's when you don't have any fluid. We done poured the fluid out of your tissues. Now, most of the time when that happens, we have to reinfuse you with normal saline because we had to put that sodium back into you. And a lot of patients, they get mad when they start cramping because they say, no, I don't want the fluid back. And they start, I can take it, but they suffer when in actuality, we're supposed to replace that volume. So I just wanted to say that. But getting to what you talked about, the clinics, that's what I want you to speak on, because in one of your interviews, you speak on the many clinics across the United States. And I wanted you to elaborate that from a patient perspective, because some patients, I see it from both perspectives. Some patients look at it as a travesty, and then some patients look at it as a blessing, the fact that there are treatment centers to help people and when it's in one's neighborhood, it cuts back on the driving. So from your perspective, talk about that, the many clinics that are popping up across urban America.
Well, to put up a clinic is quite expensive. You got to get water through the machinery. You got to hire nurses. You got to hire dialysis techs. You got to hire a lot of people to run a facility. If you're popping up these facilities everywhere, they know that many more people are going to be faced with chronic kidney disease, renal failure. Now, to me, you walk into these places and they're predominantly Black, Hispanic, or perhaps Filipino. They're minorities people, packed with diseases. And I'm not saying that Caucasian people don't have kidney transplant, but you don't see them in there. Maybe some of them decide to do home dialysis, which is a big push nowadays. Different dialysis units have different policies, procedures. I went out to California. My experience out there on a dialysis machine was a lot different than Washington, D.C., which I've been on.
You was here in Washington, D.C.?
Man, I used to stay in Washington, D.C. all the time.
What unit did you go to?
It was in a suburb. And let me tell you what, I met a dialysis tech there, and she said she's a princess. She's from Africa, and she moved here, and she was getting her master's degree. But I mean, the staff was pretty cool there, but it is a different feeling, you know what I mean? And then the dialysis unit I went to here, which I want to give a special shout out to, is University of Illinois at Chicago. Fantastic. So at that facility, they give you warm blankets. The other facility,
wow, that must have been a hospital unit.
It was a hospital unit, right? It makes a big difference, man, because you get cold. If you got a warm blanket, it can make your stay there a lot more comfortable.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So the problem I have, man, I got to be quite honest with you. I chose my unit because when I'm the type of person to go around and just peep in and look and see. I drove 25 miles to go to my unit.
Wow. 25 miles.
55 miles.
So 50 miles or 25 miles total?
25 one way.
Wow.
Now I'm going to tell you why, sadly. I went to a unit close to my house. And it was like good times up there. Man, they were smoking cigarettes in there. Everybody was running around. Hey, how you doing? Talking all that ghetto talk and all that. I can't trust them people to keep my life, man, the way I want to see it done. I'm not even going to talk about the type of people who went there. I'm talking about the dialysis techs, the technicians, the director. If I can walk into a unit, nobody stopped me. It tells me all I need to know.
Wow.
I'm sitting.
No security or nothing.
No security or nothing. When I went to my dialysis unit, you can't get through the doors, and you had a nationality of people who took pride in their work. The Filipino people take pride in their work, and I felt comfortable. And I must say, man, my experience there was fabulous. I can say a lot of them people, it was diverse there. It was blacks, whites, and everything, but they were my friends. And a couple of them didn't let me stick me for about a month because I had to watch sure they stick everybody else because they were new before they stick me. I'm not a guinea pig, man, nothing. But dialysis units are very important, but you got to take people, man, who have a quality of work. You can't bring your personal traumas to dialysis because the people in dialysis are sick. So if you had a bad day with your significant other or whatever, you need to keep that at home or your kids or whatever. So I'm real picky. I was real picky as far as where I wanted to get my treatment.
Right. Yeah, I know how that can be. Now, DK, talk about the podcast. How did that come about?
Well, as I mentioned to you earlier, man, I think it's my calling to let people know what you're facing when you deal with chronic kidney renal failure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you just kind of thrown into a sea of sharks, man. You don't know what's going on. People telling you this, that, took what drugs. So many people have so many questions to ask you that a doctor just don't have time to ask you. Man. He's looking at numbers and things.
Right.
I mean, I used to tell so many brothers that came to my unit, the brothers want to know one thing. First thing they want to ask you, we all know what that is. Hey man, can I still have sex? That's the first question they want to know. And I would say, man, it depends on your body. If you do what the doctor says, and you don't have any other conditions, yeah, you can live a healthy life on kidney disease. You just have to be aware of what you're doing and how you do it. So, people have questions, Steve, from transportation. How do I get transportation to dialysis? Do I qualify? Do I get disability? When is disability? What each state is different as far as disability.
Right. And
And does
you
it?
know what? I didn't mean to cut you off, but I remember something that I wanted to ask you that slipped my mind about the clinics. And when you mentioned about the staff, so with the overabundance of clinics, there's not going to be really enough staff to train to kind of fill in a lot of these clinics.
Well,
Experience.
I think you're going to get a boost on that now, as far as training dialysis techs to do dialysis. As far as nurses, you got to go to nursing school for that. They're specialized. But as far as techs are concerned, I don't really foresee a problem because there's so many young kids trying to come out of college or nursing or LPNs or whatever you call them. So I don't really foresee a problem with that. The problem I see as far as dialysis techs are concerned is if you're trifling as a human being, you shouldn't be in that business at all. I mean, for real, you see a lot of trifling people that say, "Oh, I want to be a nurse. I want to be this." They got no ethics, no morals, complaining, always whining and complaining and stuff. Patients don't want to hear that when they're going through that process. Stay home. Go get another job. You don't have to be there. This isn't a communist country where you have to do this for the rest of your life. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be a caring. I always say, man, you have to be a nurse. You have to be a caring person, and you've got to listen. You can't just come in and complain. So, uh, and that's very important. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think my mission is to let people know what they're facing. You know, financially, how's that going to affect your family? Man, they got to take you to dialysis 3 times a week. That's affecting them. If you can't drive yourself, fortunately, I was able to drive myself to dialysis. But older people may need assistance. As far as if you get disability, when does disability start? It starts when you get on that machine, not when you're diagnosed with it. Uh, what about my emotional feelings and all these drugs I'm going to be taking and the nutrition and it's so much, Steve, and people have so many questions to ask, personal questions.
Now, are
And
these the topics you talk about on your podcast?
yeah, we talk about everything. Matter of fact, I try to have everybody in there from people who drive you to dialysis techs, to dialysis nurses, to doctors, to hopefully I got a couple surgeons lined up and tell you about the process of that, to nutritionists. Very important nutritionist talks to you about how you eat and what you eat. Um, and then just the dialysis patients who've had a transplant. How do they feel? What are their concerns? Once you go through this, you still, it's pre-transplant, it's post-transplant. So you got to take medications, and it's a never-ending battle. But all you can do is try to do the right thing and live a healthy life. And, it's very, very, very important, man, that you, if you go through this process, you can't be around any negativity. So if you're living in a situation where it's unhealthy for you, my suggestion was leave, get out, do something, because it'd be very difficult for you to make this if you live in a hostile environment. You know. negative around. You want to be around positive people. You don't want to be anyone's burden, but you want to be positive. So I think by me telling you my story and all the experiences I have can help you as far as that's concerned.
Right. DK, Lisa Baxter of the Lisa Baxter Show, she wanted you if you could put up your podcast information.
Okay. Well, you can give it to her, Steve. You got it right there.
Is that on your Facebook page?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me put that. But Lisa, let me put that in the banner. So while I get that together, DK, when is your next show?
Man, hopefully I had a setback uh, back in February, so I'm just now getting back started. I will have a show within 2 weeks, definitely. Hopefully sooner. I had a little setback, man. I had a kidney, what they call that, a kidney infection. So I was in the hospital, man, for about 10 days, 5 days, and came back just to blow on another 5 days. So I'm feeling a
Mm-hmm.
lot better. And I am so appreciative of you giving me the opportunity to talk on your show. So thank you 100 times. I think what you're doing is fantastic, man. We have so many people out here that just don't know what they're getting into. That they need some words of wisdom and some words of encouragement. And I think this all starts with our lifestyle, man. Kind of lifestyle you lead. You know, if you're a young person out here, and if you have kids or you don't have kids, and you sitting around eating flaming hot Doritos or flaming hot onion rings and Cheetos and all that with pop or soda, wherever part of the country you call it, soda pop, you're going to have some health issues within 5 or 6 years. You have to start feeding your kids water and tea and milk as opposed to sodas. You know, a lot of people don't look at the big things. I keep up a lot with politics, but if you go to a chain food store, I don't care what part of the country you're in. If you could be in an area like, for instance, what's that? Or don't tell me. Um, it's Bowie, Maryland. That's in Prince George's County. If you go there and you go into that grocery store, they're gonna have end aisles full of pop, soda, strawberry, grape. They're gonna be pushing that product on you. If you go to a Caucasian neighborhood, you're not gonna see that. Uh, you're not gonna see them pushing soda on you and things that aren't healthy for you. It's a difference, man. They target our communities not just as food deserts, but not product. You know, you live in the urban cities, man. You go in and all you see is potato chips and pop and candy and sweets. You don't see any health food and cigarettes. They're giving you everything to kill yourself. So we have to change the way we think, man, our culture. You know, and if we do that, we won't have to face these health problems we face. And I would always tell you too, man. A lot of us always want to be a basketball or a football or a baseball player or some kind of rapper or entertainer. Teach your kids, man, to be a doctor, a surgeon, a scientist. So we don't have to depend on people from foreign countries that really got vested interest in themselves to keep us alive, to tell us what's right and wrong. We want people of our own descent to learn, to tell us what we need to eat, to find new technology, drugs, and stuff to help us. So don't teach your kids to be no. I mean, athletics is good, but there's a lot of other things they can do in life, man, to help themselves and their kids and their future generations and us. You know, time goes by fast, as we all know. When you look out in the streets now, man, all we see is men out here with their pants hanging off their butt. What's up? Can't read. They don't know how to read. Disrespectful. You gotta get away from that, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're not
I
gonna
hear
be.
you. Wow.
All this starts with it starts with stuff outside of kidney disease. It starts with do you have any vision in life, any respect for anything? You don't have that, you're gonna always have these problems.
Mm. So, are you coming up with a show soon?
Yeah, man, I have a show out here probably within 10 days for sure.
Okay, and they can go and see that on the DK Love Life and Live Millsap Facebook page.
Yep, and we're on YouTube as well.
Yeah, okay. And you already have 3 episodes out, right?
Yeah, have them take a look at it and see what they think, and hopefully they'll. We're getting a lot of followers. Unfortunately, I had a little ailment. That winter, man, is rough. I love the DC winter, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
I love the DC
Mm-hmm.
winter. Matter of fact, I got 2 kids that live in DC, Northwest DC.
Oh, okay. I'm in Northeast.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So they may live close to me because I'm in Northeast near Tacoma Park.
oh, okay. I'm not familiar with the places. I went there last summer for Father's Day to see two of them. My other daughter lives in Brooklyn, but
Brooklyn, New
man,
York, or Brooklyn and
yeah,
DC?
Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, but I love the Capitol, man. I rode around on little scooters, those scooters that you can ride around in. Nice stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, and went to nice restaurants, and it's what's that? Every spring they got some kind of tulip of flowers. It's just beautiful there, man. So,
Oh, the cherry blossoms.
cherry blossoms, yeah. Love that
Mm-hmm.
area, man. I mean, I really mild winters, great summers, and it's fantastic. And it's the most progressive city I've ever been in, as far as African Americans, man. The parks, the concerts, man. Everybody's get along. We
Yeah,
get.
but not anymore. Is most DC mostly gentrified now?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah. Well,
well, look, man, we're just about down to the wire. If anybody who like had a recent transplant or want to become an advocate or a motivational speaker in the kidney advocacy space, what would you suggest to them based on your experience?
start with your dialysis unit. Start locally. Start with your community. I got some things coming up where I live, where we're having Kidney Awareness Day. So we're planning things that people can come out and learn about kidney disease, man, and learn about how to not get it, how to go get checked out, how to know that protein in your urine is not a good thing. So if you want to be an advocate, man, get involved. There's lots of awareness things in the area, and start locally, and you'll feel much better, and you'll be able to just by starting locally, you'll be able to get in front of people, man, and tell your story or tell someone else's story or tell what you know. So that
Mm-hmm.
would be, this is something from New York to LA. This is something in the South, Minnesota to Louisiana. There's a lot of people, man, going through this, and even more so now after this COVID-19, from my understanding, that you're finding people with kidney failure, some side effects from this COVID. So what you want to do is get involved, man, and see where you can help. Start with your own family. Everybody's on Facebook, FaceTime. Start telling them about that, man, so they'll know.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just keep bottled up. What a lot of people do uh, is when you get your transplant, man, you get amnesia. It's like a bad nightmare. You just walk away. You don't ever want to see a dialysis place, or you don't even want to go see your doctor. You just feel like you're good. But you have to teach people, man. You have to tell people what we're facing. And the thing I know is a lot of this stuff we don't have to be facing if we just use some common sense.
Mm-hmm. We had Bridget who wanted to say most black people don't want healthy food. It's because most of them can't cook and don't want to cook healthy even though they're sick. I can't believe how ignorant people can be when it comes to their health. I agree with a lot of what Mr. Millsap has to say.
Oh, thank you. You know what's weird, man? I am blessed in so many ways. Uh, Years ago, man, 50 years ago, black people lived at home, man. You went to church, you ate at home, you didn't eat out all the time. And, from whatever you ate, man, if it was greens or black eyed peas or ham hocks or pork or whatever, chicken wings, whatever. But women took an interest in cooking. A lot of women nowadays, man, they don't want to cook. I don't know if they don't know how to or they refuse to or their work schedule is so busy that they can't. But just take a few minutes at a time, man, and eat healthy for yourself and for your kids.
Yeah, I remember my parents used to cook. I'm 57. I remember those days.
Yeah, man, good. You get that apple or cherry pie or greens and cornbread, and those are traditional African American foods. But even other stuff, man, and macaroni and cheese and dressing and turkey. You got to eat. I'll say one thing, man. Every day I woke up as a kid and as an adult too, as certain situations due to my kidney transplant. My mom was cooked, and she was a teacher, and my grandmother cooked, and my sister who gave me a kidney, God knows we're oil and water, love her to death, but she can cook. So you can taste the difference in food from going out to when you're at home, and you can actually taste the difference. You order some food, man, you don't know what people put in your food nowadays.
Right. Yeah. I'm blessed to still have my mom. She's 92 and she still cooks. So
yeah, and I better taste just as good today as it did 50 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So DK, anybody you want to send a shout out to before I close the show?
I like to send a shout out to all my fans and followers. I like to send a shout out to my kids. I like to send a shout out to Charisse Powell, who's worked with me in my podcast and done tremendous things to help me promote this. And my parents, my sister, my brother, sister-in-law, and all my family that uncles and aunts. And I want to spend a special shout out to my aunt Linda Kay in California.
All right.
Her real name is Linda Kay.
Right.
And thanks again, Steve, man, for giving me an opportunity to talk on your show. It's fabulous. You're doing a wonderful job. I know you're going to talk about other issues, and I'm going to hope that you come on my show soon. I'd love to have you talk about your experiences, man, with kidney advocacy.
Oh, absolutely. It'll be a pleasure to come on your show, DK.
Yeah. So for all you fans of Steve Show, keep listening. He provides valuable information for you. What else better to do on a Sunday night, man, but get an hour of some valuable information from some normal, real life people. So on that note, thanks again. And feel free to contact me if you have any questions regarding kidney situations and problems.
Right, because before you go, you also do workshops, presentations for caregivers, family members, and others when a person is impacted by kidney failure. So you just don't do the podcast and motivational speaking. You also do workshops and presentations for family members. So well-rounded advocate. So, man, God bless you. And thanks for coming on, DK. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Steve. Take care.
All right. Talk to you soon, man.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye. So, guys, this was an awesome first show with World Health News. Be on the lookout in about 2 weeks for another episode of World Health News. We're going to be talking about lupus, hopefully next week. This is Lupus Awareness Month. So we will have someone on this month and talk about lupus. With that being said, thank you guys for watching the first edition of World Health News. God bless, and we'll see you soon. Peace.
These brothers my guys. CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Cold, these brothers my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Ride or die, ride or die, ride or die, ride or die.